What it is, my fellow guardians. My name is Batman, and here I show you the conquest of the Glass Vault and its inhabitants, the desolation of Atheon the Wicked. It is a step-by-step walkthrough that you seek to hold your hand through the darkness, but the simple reality is that not even that will be enough. Bungie knew you would seek these walkthroughs. They designed this game and this raid specifically so that your hand could only be held for so long. They anticipated from the beginning that the path would be made clear to you in a video, and thus made the seemingly simple act of walking that path a mighty obstacle in and of itself. But they did not anticipate me. If you give a man a fish, he'll eat for a day, but if you teach him to fish, he will eat for life. Should a guardian learn a raid, he'll beat that one raid, that one day, on that one game. But should he learn to fight and truly think for himself, then he may overcome any raid, any day, on any game. A true guardian must discover how to make war and love and secure justice and prosperity through cooperation and camaraderie. Then a guardian he is no longer, but a god. With this memorandum of tactics, I will arm you in such a way that you never need of a walkthrough again, to equip you with the exotic tools that all artificial intelligence inevitably and consistently bow to. But there's something else here, isn't there? You've sensed it all along. It is laced throughout our games. It is evident and manifest in our existence. This is more than a game, this is my life. At the end of the day, this is a guide to the real world too, for these things are equally applicable, because that is what Destiny is about, isn't it? That is the very purpose of art, the honey of the universe. This is how to get better at Destiny PvE. Now let me preface everything by saying that this guide is dedicated wholly to players who wish to actually challenge themselves. If you still avoid playing content until you've out-leveled it, if you play it without modifiers, you play it on a reasonable difficulty and not the hardest one, then you shouldn't need any assistance in the first place, because you have infinite lives against an enemy who couldn't possibly best you, unless you're a stupid fuck. Now when you do actually find yourself up against a challenge, whether it's the raid, or some weekly, or daily, or the nightfall, these challenges which offer the best rewards, the rewards that make you lust, the 9 strange coins that you can only get on level 28 difficulty, it is important to understand the greatest lessons from the art of war and the I Ching, these texts of ancient Chinese philosophy. The best doctors exert the least effort because the best doctors prevent problems with your health from occurring in the first place. This requires low amounts of skill, low amounts of time, energy, and resources on your part. Ironically, the worst doctors require the most skill, for they are surgeons, and if they must operate on you, then you've already sacrificed too much in terms of health, energy, and resources to the problem. The operation itself is a risk and will inevitably inflict its own damage on your constitution, whereas the best doctor would have halted the need for such a procedure in the first place. Now in real life, there are certainly exceptions, qualifiers, and other variables to consider when taking this advice into account, but not in the game. It is infinitely easier to prevent a problem than it is to fix one. In those boss fights, whether it's the end of a simple story mission like the brutal assassination of that Winter Kell, the climax of a strike against Sepix Prime or the Archon Priest or that tank on Mars, or the epic conclusion of the raid itself, the boss is never the greatest threat. It's the infantry that it sends out as its sort of cannon fodder. These units are more likely to kill you than the boss, and if the boss does kill you, there's a good chance its support units played a key role in your demise, either by distracting or damaging you. That's what they're designed to do. Think of Fogarth in the summoning pits. When those 3 hive wizards spawn at the same time, who are you more afraid of? These infantry get spread out around the map like a parasite consuming you, minimizing the amount of cover available, for even a lowly Greg can keep your shields from recharging at a distance, exponentially increasing the opportunities for the boss to plow you right in your face. When it's wizards and minotaurs, self-destructing supplicants, fallen captains, servitors, and noob-tubing legionnaires, these things can kill you just as quickly and will kill you more often than the bosses ever do. And they can get closer to you than the bosses. They move faster than the bosses, and there are always places that the bosses can't follow you, but the infantry still can. These smaller units are the real problem, and they are one that ought to be prevented early on, for the longer you wait, the more dangerous they become. They are at their most vulnerable when they first spawn, whether dropped in from a ship or exiting a cave single file. One rocket, one super, can do more in this brief span of time than a full 20 minutes of shooting after they've spread out. It is imperative that you save your supers, your grenades, and your heavy ammo for the infantry, the smaller units. That is where you'll get the most bang for your buck, and the boss by itself, isolated from any assistance from its cannon fodder infantry, is hardly a threat at all. It can only shoot in one direction at a time, and you can devote your full attention to said boss, and thus anticipate and react to its tricks with ease. And any supers or heavy ammo or grenades used on the boss itself are a gross waste of resources. They obviously won't get the kill, they won't minimize the amount of danger on the battlefield, and in the long run, using these special attacks on the boss won't even speed up his demise, because when you use your rockets or grenades on the boss, you're obviously taking away a bigger chunk of its health faster than if you use bullets, but not that big a chunk, and ultimately now that you have to use your gun to fight the infantry, clearing those guys out is going to take much longer than it would have taken to just rocket them and use your gun to deal an equal amount of damage to the boss. Anytime you waste a rocket or a super or a grenade on the boss, you are not only wasting resources and increasing the level of difficulty via dispersed enemy ground units, but you are also making the whole process itself take longer. All of these things together dramatically increase the chance of failure. Prevent the infantry from becoming a problem. Rocket them, grenade them, and super them off the spawn so that they don't evolve into a much larger problem. And if they have evolved into a larger problem, if they are spread out, then continue to rocket and grenade and super them. That is where your special attacks are spent most wisely. Because if you should run into a situation where you have to perform surgery, you have to dodge the boss and hide from this minotaur and sneak in to revive this one motherfucker, all of these things are doable, but incredibly and exponentially difficult. Don't make it hard on yourself. Deal with the problem early on before it becomes something worse. Any minor misstep can quickly escalate into something dramatically problematic. Any single death can be the straw that broke the camel's back. When one guardian falls, the probability of failure spikes. It will always be easier for you to stay alive than it is for your teammates to revive you. Prioritize staying alive above all else. When you go down, your surviving teammates are faced with an exponentially rising difficulty. There are less targets to divvy up the focus of your enemy's fire. There are less guns to thin out the ranks of your enemy's flesh and synthetic composition. Now, either this lasts for a dangerous 30 seconds while you wait to respawn, or in truly challenging circumstances, it lasts until you're revived, which of course requires your teammates to revive you, which is of course the surgery we are trying to avoid. It is a difficult and high-risk procedure, and every time your team is put in a position where they have to perform that surgery, they are opening themselves up to an exponentially greater chance of failure. On its face, it would seem the most basic principle of PvE, that the more you die, the more likely you are to fail, but it is remarkable how few players fully comprehend the detrimental effects of their own death, and so they die, often because they are arrogant. The general rule that I think more players ought to abide by is to have respect for your enemy, and when necessary, play like a pussy. It's very easy to underestimate bots and artificial intelligence after you've been playing against humans for so long, but the simple truth is that what these bots lack in prefrontal cortex power, they more than make up for with stats, health, and damage disproportionately stacked against you. They will outnumber you heavily and consistently. They never run out of ammo, and in many cases they will have infinite respawns as well until you have moved past the area of their origin. Half of all deaths against PvE occur when players fight arrogantly, when they refuse to back off even if their health bar is red, because they are convinced they can take out the enemy before the enemy takes out them. When players don't even pay attention to the health bar. When players Rambo into groups of enemies with a shotgun because they are confident they can simply out DPS the bots. This kind of stuff might be possible if you've outleveled the content, but otherwise not so much. Never get into a pissing contest with a bot. Don't let it turn into a fight where you're both plowing into one another to see who dies first. It might work every now and then, but it will get you killed, and it's a mistake. It's a common error, one that I make and I think that many other players make. Often, it's because we're trying to get into fistfights with the AI. If the AI gets too close, you're confident you can finish them off with a melee. 2 melees max is all it ever takes to kill a human player. Often a melee is all it takes to beat the AI too, for it is a powerful attack, and even if it doesn't kill them, it'll get them to flinch, right? But not so much on the higher difficulties. Maybe the angry modifier is on and they won't flinch period now. If they're strong enough, it's going to take multiple melees just to get the flinch. If it's a servitor or a fallen captain or those sword vandals or even a hive thrall, you will get out meleeed. While you're fist fighting, you won't notice the cursed thrall sneaking up behind you, the lowly dreg creeping from behind to shank you in your bunghole. And if you die within melee range of your enemy, it's going to make it that much harder for your team to save you. In fact, they will probably have to eliminate most of the enemy force before they are able to save you. If your team is forced to win a fight without you simply because you died in such a way that they could not possibly revive you until the fight is won, then you owe your team an apology. Don't try and Jason Bourne 007 Neo Rambo Captain America the enemy. If it comes down to a battle of attrition in which you and the enemy are essentially playing a game of chicken with your health to see which red bar will hit 0 first, you will eventually and inevitably lose that fight, because the enemy has more health, does more damage, and has more troops on the field to begin with, and sacrificing yourself for one kill is never worth it, period. The trick is to keep a healthy distance from the enemies and always have a fallback position, somewhere relatively safe to recover, and if you always have such a spot, you are become invincible. You can change this spot rapidly and often. It can be right next to you or a teleport away or even a short sprint, but always have a safe spot singled out in your mind, somewhere you can back off to recover, because nothing is as important as you staying alive. No kill, no amount of kills is worth the sacrifice of your life. Now, there are two reasons I think players so often get caught in this trap of trying to outlast the enemy. The first is that on lower difficulties, where you have the content out-leveled even only by 1 or 2 levels, you can get away with spamming melee, especially because you'll almost always get them to flinch on those lower difficulties. You can pop out and mow down groups of dregs and thralls at half health, and it will make you feel like a badass, because in a lot of ways the game is designed to make you feel like a badass. But then, if you get into that nasty habit, it's gonna stay with you like herpes when you take on the more difficult challenges in the game. Exotic bounties, the daily and weeklies, the nightfall, and the raid, of course, will all brutally punish that behavior. And those are really the things you have to complete if you want the best rewards this game has to offer. You have to run strikes with the epic modifier on, where every bad guy, even the harpies and the skanks, have shields, and you're gonna try and out melee these pathetic little floating balls, and they're gonna shit in your mouth because those tactics just won't fly when the struggle is real. And of course, shields themselves are the second reason people get caught in these battles of attrition. They're worried that if they don't finish this motherfucker off right now, they won't get another chance. And that is obviously a rational concern. On the higher difficulties, those minotaurs are a pain in the fucking ass. If you have that minotaur shields down and health low, your natural instinct is going to be to pursue him to the gates of hell, because you want to end him, because that minotaur is a serious threat and it's hard to kill and it needs to fucking die right now. And getting his shields down in the first place was hard, and now if he gets away and his shields recharge, it's like all the work you just did was time wasted. And your team is going to have to go through and deal with this minotaur all over again as it plows its void noob tube down your throats. Now, all of this is true, but this is when it's most important to remember the cardinal rule of this game. You staying alive matters more than that motherfucker dying. Instead, use teamwork to overcome shielded OP enemies, for that is the only true and consistent method of success. It is always better to have 3 dudes shooting 1 bad guy than 3 dudes shooting 3 bad guys. The general goal throughout all Destiny PvE is to lower both the damage per second and the amount of map control and subsequent lines of sight of your enemy as quickly as possible. Your team's overall DPS will remain constant regardless of where they're shooting, so long as they're shooting at something. However, the rate at which your team removes enemy combatants from the battlefield will increase dramatically if you're calling out targets and all 3 as a unit, each the prong of a brutal death fork, hitting said targets in unison simultaneously. And this is good, obviously, because the faster you kill the bad guys, the faster you become safer. Now, this doesn't necessarily apply to all enemies all the time. If you can kill the enemy faster than your teammates will be able to find it, just kill it. If it's Gregs and Skanks and Harpies and such, just take them out as rapidly as you can and trust your teammates to do the same with the low-level enemies in their lines of sight. But when it's a Minotaur, when it's an Ultra Tier Knight, the ones with the yellow health bars, when the epic modifier's on and everything is shielded all the time, that's when you need to hit a target as a team. Call it out. Don't engage it until you're sure your team is ready to hit it as well. Don't waste a clip to get its shields halfway down only to have them recharge. But having the discipline to pile on targets consistently by itself is still not enough. You have to know when to hit which targets and in what order. This mental priority list should be based off of what will make you safer faster, because the name of the game is staying alive. So long as you are alive, you cannot lose. And the best defense is a good offense. The very first bad guys you need to hit are any melee or point blank detonation bad guys, alright? Thralls, cursed thralls, dual sword wielding vandals, and those hive knights with the big ass cleavers. Those are the most immediate threats on the battlefield, because you cannot take cover from them because they will follow you behind cover, and when they are constantly advancing on your cover and ruining its safety, you'll be forced to retreat from cover, obviously opening yourself up to all the enemy fire you were trying to hide from in the first place. And if they do close the distance to you, they will inflict massive amounts of damage in a very short period of time. Oftentimes on the higher difficulties, they are one-hit kills. If they reach you, you will die, and it will be very hard for someone to revive you when there's melee guys teabagging your corpse. You need to kill these things in advance as a group. For instance, in the beginning of the Sepix Prime Strike, when you have to hold off those 3 waves of bad guys while Dinklage takes his sweet time opening yet another door, if you do it on Nightfall, for instance, there are going to be several yellow health bar ultra stealth vandals with their swords. They will one-hit kill you, and one player by themselves won't have enough firepower to take down that bad guy before said bad guy closes the distance, and certainly not if said players makes the common mistake of waiting until they're actually being charged at to start shooting the melee charger guy. So as soon as those waves start pouring out of their spawn, locate the melee enemies in advance, start shooting ASA motherfucking P, and call them out. A good call out is, hey, shoot the vandal I'm shooting at, and the other 2 guys can find your bullets as long as they have the wits to stop shooting themselves for a brief second. Start with the yellow bars, work your way down. Now, once all of the melee and self-destructing enemies are eliminated, the next priority should be any enemy that can inflict splash damage. For one, because splash damage is always the second most high damage enemy DPS on the field behind those point blank attacks, and also because splash damage is the other kind of attack that can usually get past cover. Hive Wizards, Hive Knights with the Arc Grenade Launchers, Legionnaires with their noob tubes, and Minotaurs with their OP Void noob tubes, and Servitors with those Death Vagina noob tubes. These enemies also often require high amounts of damage to kill. Even when they don't have shields, Knights, Minotaurs, and Wizards can take a good licking without giving up the ghost, but the truth is, they will have shields most of the time, and you and your team need to hit them in unison as a trifecta of death and take the motherfuckers out ASA motherfucking P. But of course, this is only after the elimination of the point blank attack using bad guys. Now, following the destruction of those 2 types of enemies, you can remove other bad guys at will. They all pretty much fall into the same category. Now, as a general rule, first kill the targets that will die the fastest, because this eliminates danger the fastest, excluding when you're killing melee guys, sword vandals and such. You want to hit the strongest first, because the weaker and lower level ones are going to be easier to deal with if they should manage to close the distance with you, and in some cases, it's inevitable that they do, that someone will reach you. Just make sure it's the weak guy and not the guy with the yellow health bar. And with this knowledge, with these techniques, may you become the water that is guaranteed the path of least resistance. May you prevent all disease, conquer all difficulties, destroy all foes in your path, and rule every world and bask in the glory of every piece of loot. Please rate. This is Batman, signing out.